She was the first African finalist for the Prix Goncourt in France 3 years ago. Cameroonian writer Djaily Amadou Amal drew inspiration for her third novel about the condition of women who are usually asked on their wedding day to be patient. She shared with our journalist Laurent Soustras the origin of her book, Les Impatientes, which is now crowned worldwide and even in the A-level program of Cameroonian high schools.
Djaily Amadou Amal, hello and welcome to Initiative Africa. Your novel, Les Impatientes, was awarded the Prix Goncourt des Lycéens 2020. What's the story behind this novel?
Well, the novel Les Impatientes was first published in Cameroon in 2017 with a different title, Munial, Les Larmes de la Patience, in English, The Tears of Patience. So in 2018, it won the Pan-African Press Award at the Paris Book Fair, and then the first prize at the Orange Prize for Books in Africa for the Best African Novel of that year. So from there, it all started. Publishing house like Emmanuel Colas published it with the title Les Impatientes here in France. It was on the Goncourt list.
Ici en France, il est dans la liste du Goncourt. Il finit finaliste du Goncourt.
And became the finalist for the Goncourt and the Goncourt des Lycéens 2020. At the international level, several international contests, including the Greek, Czech, Serbian, Algerian, Tunisian, and even Oriental.
Tunisie et puis de l'Orient.
But what is the story of this novel you've been carrying around with you for a long time?
Eh bien, j'ai toujours voulu écrire.
I have always wanted to write a novel about violence against women. I was looking for a theme for a long time because how could I talk about all forms of violence by focusing on one single character or a single text? Well, one day, during the signing of my second novel, Mistirijo, La Mangeuse d'âme, the Soul Eater in English, a member of our association, Tabita, came to me and handed me a piece of paper where it was written in Fulani, advice from a father to his daughter. I realized that we all know this. Every time there's a wedding in our country, the bride has to say goodbye to her father before leaving for her new home. And on this occasion, the famous advice is given, and obviously also reminded to all surrounding women. An advice always starting with this word, munial, meaning be patient. But when people in Africa tell a woman to be patient, it simply means to accept everything, to put up with everything, especially without complaining. And according to this concept of munial, a woman should abnegate her happiness to sacrifice herself for her family, for dignity, for the children. She should constantly think of others. She has to think of others all the time. Ultimately, for me, to talk about violence, the main thread could only be patience.
You give life to women characters somehow trapped, even oppressed, just because of their gender and also by the weight of tradition and religion, which according to you contributes to continuing the spiral of violence?
Well, that remains a difficult question because there's obviously the social-cultural factor. There's also the misinterpretation of religious texts. Other factors come into play which we don't talk about. Precariousness, for example, which is itself caused by climate change, Boko Haram, etc. So the condition of women obviously worsens when there are crises. Let's not forget, for example, during COVID, the health crisis. Well, the condition of women has worsened. So whenever there's an upheaval, the first victims are obviously women and children.
How was your book welcomed in Cameroon and in Francophone Africa? Did it help to open this debate?
Well, the book was warmly welcomed even before it was published in France under the title Les Impatientes. Like I said, it won the first book prize in Africa, but also the prize from the Alliance of Independent Publishers. I mentioned it won the first book prize in Africa, but also the prize of the Alliance of Independent Publishers, since it must be remembered before the book became Les Impatientes, it was already co-published in more than 10 countries in the Terre Solidaire collection of the Alliance of Independent Publishers. But after the Goncourt, it went even further, because today in Cameroon, Munial, The Tears of Patience, this Cameroonian version of Les Impatientes, is part of the school curriculum for all senior high school classes. It's indeed a taboo subject that we don't really talk about. The status of women and violence against women is now becoming a subject discussed in schools, and it is really important.
What is your vision of the role of a writer in Africa? Should he or she also be seen as a kind of social agitator, a consciousness raiser?
The writer has always been a consciousness raiser. The writer has always been the mirror of his or her society. And obviously in Africa, this is even more true. The majority of African writers are all literary activists. There are also so many things you want to say. And when you're a woman, it goes even further because you should be able to talk about all these themes, things that you've experienced, that challenge you, that affects you in your life.
Djaïli Amadou Amal,
Djaïli Amadou Amal, you are from Cameroon, and we know the country is plagued by attacks from armed Islamist groups. Are you concerned by the rise of fear, even a murta that could harm the cause of women?
Well, we've had Boko Haram here for a few years now. Obviously, this has led to women oversensitivity. There's no denying that. When there's a crisis, women and children are the first victims. Obviously, the consequence is that there are many more women and children in the refugee camps or even the camps for internally displaced persons. And of course, like any conscientious Cameroonian, we ask ourselves these questions. And hope that it won't go further than that. But we also have confidence in our army, which has greatly protected the territory. So we are also grateful for that. Today, in the city of Maroua or Garoua, in the far north of Cameroon, we don't feel threatened or feared, anything like that. We feel relatively safe and have confidence in our army, which is trying as much as possible to repel the aggressors.
You have stated that many women simply want to obey to please men. Is this one of the reasons for the persistence of excision?
Well, excision is rather a cultural practice. It's not a religious prescription or something like that. In Cameroon, it still concerns about 500 girls. When we talk about traditions, it is more challenging to convince people to abandon these practices, which are harmful to the girls undergoing them. I think that efforts are being made to raise awareness. And of course, let's not forget that it's an illegal practice. But I still think that the state is a bit pernicious because if we threaten the people who practice it, we can phase it out.
But
excision, as much as early and forced marriage or breast ironing, well, maybe we should be more tough and punish the people who practice them.
You have created an association, Femmes du Sahel, Women of Sahel. What is its mission?
Well, I created the Femmes du Sahel Association in 2012. Women of the Sahel Association, after publishing my first novel, L'art de partager en mari, the art of sharing a husband. For me, it was important to talk about it and even go beyond that, break the taboos and create something tangible to make a contribution, something concrete. So the Femmes du Sahel Association has two components: education, which is obviously the most important one, and then the second one, development. With the association, we sponsor children, we give school supplies to the most disadvantaged. We also do a lot of awareness raising in schools, high schools and colleges for girls on the importance of education and how the education of girls is a development vector, and how to prevent violence, primarily early and forced marriages, which remain the most serious form of violence for me. And then also try to set up as many libraries as possible, especially in rural areas where children generally do not read because there's no access to books.
Pour moi, il est très très important de
For me, it is very important to give books to children, especially in remote villages, because books allow you to travel and also to free yourself and have dreams.
et d'avoir des rêves. Pour moi, ça s'est passé de
For
cette
me,
manière.
it happened this way.
Nous avons plusieurs autres activités.
We have several other activities around education, around development, where we encourage women to have income-generating activities.
Nous travaillons avec d'autres associations.
We work with other women's associations on the ground and try to help them as much as possible.
Possible notre aide.
En tant qu'écrivain et
As a writer and a keen observer of society, how do you see the impact on the continent of various movements that came from the West, such as Me Too and Black Lives Matter? Are you already seeing any influence or effects?
Eh bien, je pense que quand vous dites
Well, I think when you say the feminist movement, in reality, these movements have always existed all over the world.
C'est pas seulement, ça vient pas forcément de l'Occident.
It doesn't necessarily come from the West.
De le dire ou de le voilà.
It could be perceived like that, which might differ from continent to continent.
D'un continent à un autre, mais les femmes ont toujours mené des
But women
combats,
have always
ont toujours
fought,
cherché
sought
l'égalité,
equality,
ont toujours,
and to improve their
voilà,
condition.
cherché à améliorer leurs conditions. Et évidemment,
And obviously, even in Africa, where we can say that there are feminist movements, we're not necessarily making the same demands. Still, we're trying the best, as best as we can, to defend our rights by eradicating all forms of violence.
toutes les formes de violence.
What are the differences between feminism in the West and feminism in Africa?
Eh bien, nous sommes, je veux dire, en
Well, we are,
Afrique,
in Africa, still on the essential, essential feminism. Essential, the simplest rights are the rights to education, the right to be born free, and the same rights as men.
avoir les mêmes droits que les hommes, le droit de vote, le droit.
The right to vote, the basic rights.
J'étais justement à un débat un jour.
One day, I was at a debate at a European conference with other women from elsewhere.
Où j'avais d'autres femmes venues d'ailleurs et l'une des femmes.
And one of the women, part of a very, very feminist association, the Femen, we all heard about them.
C'est de quoi on parle. Elle était en colère.
She was angry in her claim and with all the necessary seriousness told us how they are fighting for the rights of young girls so that they can go to school without a bra. And I'm asked the simple question, what do you think, Jaili? Well, I think we're not fighting the same battles. I'm fighting for the opposite, so that girls have the right to wear a loincloth over their uniforms, if that allows them to continue their education, their studies. To convince school directors that girls' uniform can be longer, if they want to, if this is what will allow them to go to school. You see, we're still fighting for basic rights.
Encore sur l'essentiel qu'on se bat.
Jaili Amadou Amal, thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.